This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the current state of WWE. I've got Anthony DeMarco back with me this week, and as always, it seems to be customary to kind of focus on the Roman Reigns storyline, and this week's no different, but with an added wrinkle of the honorary Uce of Sami Zayn. So I'm excited to talk about this because it's a bit of a different take on what's going on with the Roman Reigns storyline. So how you doing, buddy? And are you ready to talk about this?
Yeah, and you know what? Usually I come on here and I'm none too pleased with the redundant at times Roman Reigns storyline. But I think what they're doing with Sami Zayn in the Bloodline, and especially the development on SmackDown this past week, it has really kind of breathed new life into the Bloodline. And this isn't to say that I want it to go on for, let's say, another 800 days or so, or however long it's been right now. But I think that at least now, with the addition of Solo Sikoa and with this new wrinkle of Sami Zayn, as they always kind of drop breadcrumbs that he's on the outs, whether it be with Jey Uso or Roman Reigns this past week, only to be given the honorary Uce shirt, I think that now we at least have another reason to be invested into the Bloodline. It's not the same old stuff that we had been accustomed to going back to August of 2020. And then obviously, as you mentioned, you have like the presumable lingering interjection of Kevin Owens. Maybe at the draft, he could come over to SmackDown if there is a draft this year. So while I still think that it is a bit overkill with the Bloodline, and I really wish to God they would take one of the championships off of him, at least now with Sami Zayn, they've added a new wrinkle to make it a bit less mundane and redundant.
This is actually, dare I say, a little bit fun, only because of Sami Zayn, and if we take our focus off of the infinite number of days that Roman has been championed, I think it helps with just really getting through the story until the final conclusion, whenever the hell that is. But ultimately, do I think Sami Zayn's going to defect or be ousted from the group to turn babyface? Yeah, I do, and I still believe that it's going to be Kevin and Sami Zayn that will dethrone the Usos at some point in the next few months. But of course, they have to get through that record that they reminded us on Friday night about, with the New Day carrying that 458-day, I think it's somewhere around there, title reign for the Tag Team Championship. So they're definitely going to surpass the New Day. Definitely, first of all, earned. And to me, it's more respectable than the New Day, where New Day just kind of felt like they needed to. They haven't had a banner landmark to hit, and they just have been tag team champions 20 times, but their length of run hasn't been really discussed. And I wasn't a big fan of the New Day, as you and I both know, but I think the Usos carrying that title, so to speak, carrying that that banner forever, that they are going to be the longest reigning tag team champions, is I think well earned. But with Sami Zayn, I really do enjoy this now on SmackDown, just because of him. And it's really difficult to boo him because he's been heel for so long that he's kind of organically just turning babyface because he's so endearing and he's good on the mic and he's entertaining. And to me, the one that made me laugh this week was when he was backstage and he was approached by Madcap Moss and Ricochet, and they ended up running their mouth to Sammy, and Solo Sikoa ended up blindsiding both of them, just taking them both down. And then Sammy looked at Solo and said, "I was just about to do that," and I was just like, I laughed. I mean, it was just great timing. So,
and even Solo Sikoa, like that new element is kind of like the heavy of the group. It adds something, right? And like it's a breath of fresh air and just now that you can kind of break away from the Usos and Roman Reigns all the time and sprinkle in some segments of Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa, and obviously they have like a special like relationship, him accompanying Solo to the ring 2 weeks ago on SmackDown. I think that they've really kind of prolong the lifeline of the bloodline. And Sami Zayn, obviously, I'm partial. He's from Montreal, so I think it's super cool how successful he's become, along with Kevin Owens, the same principle. But the last time we saw Sami Zayn as a babyface was just around right now, 5 years ago in 2017. He turned heel at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in 2017 of Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon. So it's been 5 years now of him being like a full-blown heel. And when we originally saw him as a babyface on the main roster, he wasn't really that relatable, right? Like, he would come to the ring, he would dance like, I guess, his ska music or whatever kind of genre you would call it. And he was kind of booked weak. Like, do you remember, like, early on, he was getting obliterated by Braun Strowman each and every Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
And I just don't think that Vince saw Sami Zayn as anything more than a comedy act. But if you really look at his history, and Kevin Owens has alluded to this, like, he is a legitimately really good in-ring competitor. And I think that, look, he still is so endearingly funny. Like, he's just such a naturally funny and gifted guy on the microphone that I could see why you would want to keep him in that role. But I think that under Triple H, and you don't have to do it right away, and I think that's good because you don't want to take a hard left turn right off the bat. If you could gradually turn him back into that in-ring performer and that in-ring competitor that really got him over in the first place more on the indie scene and in NXT, I think you have something here. And, like, maybe you could build to a match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn that isn't always just the same, like, comedy act and one being a menace, but actually build it on a similar type of way that they had in NXT. And, I mean, they have something good here. And I think that under Triple H, they've done a good job to kind of really make Sami Zayn relevant again and something more than just a comedy act, although he is super hilarious.
I don't know if it's intentional or not, because if he's truly being booked as this heel you're supposed to hate, I mean, people cheer along with him. I mean, they don't really boo him. You listen to the reaction, and same kind of goes with Roman Reigns. It's, you hear the reaction and it's not boos. And I think some of that is because the fact that he's not there that much. So even if he is a heel, people are excited that he's just there at all. You saw that even with Brock Lesnar when he was a heel for how many years as champion, people still cheered when he came out because they knew that they were they had a special show because that person's there. So I think there's a little bit of that. If Roman was there every week, it might be a little more negative, but with Sami Zayn, the only thing I really am kind of concerned about with Sami, or more of just, I don't know where it's going to go, is Jey Uso, who just does not trust or like Sami at all. I mean, the way he looks at him, the way that he tore his shirt off this week only to have Roman, of course, give him the Honor Rouge shirt. But Jey Uso has not liked Sami at all from day one, and I think there's going to be something that's going to come of that. I don't know if it's going to be an eventual blow-off of Jey just outright attacking Sami, and then what does the bloodline do, right? Like, but there's something there. There's got to be a reason. What do you think the reason is that Jey Uso just doesn't trust Sami Zayn, always has this kind of anger or hostility towards him? What do you think this is going to lead to? Of an eventual match, the breakdown of the bloodline? What is this?
I think it's just good storytelling, kind of foreshadowing in a way that eventually, Sami Zayn is going to break away from the bloodline, whether that be them turning on him or him turning on them or Kevin Owens getting involved or a combination of all three. I think that's a way of just keeping that anticipation at an absolute height of us waiting for that turn to happen, because it's going to happen. But like, as long as you keep that kind of bitterness and that tension between Jey and Sami, it always will keep us fans being just like, okay, is it going to happen now? Like this week, when he ripped off the shirt of Sami Zayn and he thought that Roman Reigns was finally kicking him out of the group, and then we're just like, okay, here it is. This is when, like, they're going to beat him up, and then maybe Kevin Owens' music is going to hit, only for them to be like, nope, they duped us, and he's still in the bloodline more over than ever now. He gets his own shirt, and we're just like, damn, okay, so now we got to wait for another couple of months and waiting. And I think it's just good long-term storytelling. And on the Roman Reigns front, I found that this past week on SmackDown, it really kind of reminded me that I really do like Roman Reigns as a wrestler, and as, like, even as a promo, I think he's done a really good job. And like you said, the crowd likes seeing Roman Reigns. Like, he is super over, and I think you mentioned on your mailbag last week that it's getting to a point where if they wanted to go babyface with him at this point, I think they probably could. So whenever we, let's say, have complaints about the Bloodline, it's not about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is arguably the best guy that they have in the company right now. And I don't think many people would argue with that. And I don't want to see Roman Reigns go away. Hell, I don't even want to see him lose the Universal Championship. It's just the only thing about Roman Reigns is that I don't like that it's always all the eggs in his basket.
For a guy that's not there, and yeah, I mean, we've discussed that at length, and yeah, you're right. I mean, when you see Roman Reigns, it does feel special. So I understand why your in-person experience, you cheer for this guy because he's not here that often. Once every 3 to 4 shows, once every other pay-per-view. Like, we know the schedule, so I get it, and I know why people cheer for him, and he is entertaining, and he is really good in the ring, and that's never been the complaint. I mean, our complaint has been very simple. Like, we need to get one championship off him. That's it. That's all we're asking for, and he can continue as long as he wants with the Universal. But one more point on Sami Zayn. You know, we've talked about, well, when's he gonna turn babyface, and it's gonna happen. But I mean, you could kind of argue it's already happened in a way inside of the Bloodline, where he's this endearing, kind of harmless heel that it's infiltrated the Bloodline and befriended them with minus Jey Uso. So, and he's kind of like this little tag-along guy that ends up trying to impress the rest of the group and be a part of the group. And it's fun to watch. I just hope that when they do fully go behind this babyface turn, that it's not what they did with Seth Rollins and the Authority, where Seth Rollins was ousted by the Authority, and then we're supposed to cheer for Rollins out of sympathy. And it's like, no, Rollins, you didn't choose to leave the Authority. They decided to kick you out of that group, of that faction. So I hope that that's not the case, because to me, when you get kicked out of a group, I would rather have you leave willingly, or show us that you had a plan all along to inject some kind of poison into this group to dismantle the group from within. So I hope they don't go that road. It'll still work, but to me, it's better storytelling if, when this happens, that they have Sami Zayn willingly leave, or it's found out somehow through hidden footage or something, that he's been infiltrating this group all along and playing all of them just for some master plan. I mean, it's possible. He is the ultimate, what does he say? Not the ultimate opportunist. He's the conspiracy.
The strategist?
Yeah. So, I mean, he would live up to that name. And so that's just, I don't know, wishful thinking of how I'd want Sami Zayn to leave.
Well, I have a question. Do you think that there's any chance here that they double down on him being a heel, and even when Kevin Owens does get involved, he sticks with the Bloodline?
They may double down on it to convince the audience that he's a heel forever, and that ultimately it's decided that, or it's found out that he is actually still with Kevin Owens, even though they appear to be doubling down. But if it's a true double down, if it's truly to try to get the fans to hate Sami with no short-term or a long-term plan to turn him babyface, then they could do that. But to me, the real heat shouldn't be on Sami. It should be on Roman, and it should be on the Usos, because they are still the core of the story, and now Solo. So Sami Zayn is definitely the odd duckling here. He is the one that is the odd man out. And he's the straw that stirs the drink, or whatever analogy you want to use. There's something about Sami that they're going to do with this group. He is not forever going to be a part of the Bloodline, but if they turn him heel or continue to just drive him down that heel road, I mean, I don't know if I really want that. Again, as you said, for 5 years we've been booing this guy, and we've already got it out of our system, which is why people are starting to cheer him again, and they're not booing him. You hear him go up against whoever, and he's being cheered. His music, while he kind of manipulated it a bit to not be as sing-along, people still love his music. They love his entrance. His backstage segments are entertaining. It's just hard to hate him. So if they do it, I still don't think it'll work.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess to kind of pivot a bit here, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that Kevin Owens gets involved in this storyline with the Bloodline Sami Zayn?
If you asked me that 3-4 weeks ago when he had that interaction with Sami, I would have said absolutely, no question. But Kevin Owens, I feel like I don't know where he's going. I know he's right now feuding with Theory, And that's fun and it's good. And he had that random interruption of Drew McIntyre that was the highlight of Raw about a month ago, and that was great. And I felt like they didn't know really where to go with him. He's just kind of interrupting and having segments of the night every single time he does it. And he's got a program right now with Theory, and it's fine. But do I think he's eventually going to get involved with Roman? Probably. It seems as if Triple H is much higher on Kevin than Vince was. I mean, that's apparent just 2 months into his run as the head of creative and head of talent relations. So I say yes, I hope so, because Kevin going against the Bloodline with Sami Zayn being the ultimate wild card of where do his loyalties truly lie would be a really fun story.
Well, because I just think that Kevin Owens, and you're absolutely right, and under Triple H, this will probably be corrected, but it's just more times than not, there are just issues trying to find where Kevin Owens is going and what his ultimate destination is. And I think that in and of itself is kind of like always been the problem with Kevin Owens, aside from his initial Universal Championship run. 6 years ago now, that I covered this past week on Retro, but it's just, he's always just kind of like in no concrete path. And I think that even if you just got me on a path for like the IC title or the US title, something of that, but I think Kevin Owens has proved that he's a main eventer if you actually commit to him. And he's one of these guys like Seth Rollins, like Drew McIntyre, even like Bobby Lashley to an extent, that if you actually put the rocket strap to them and commit to them down that path, he can be a main eventer. And look, obviously the question of who to dethrone Roman Reigns for either championship is a big question. But I mean, I don't see why Kevin Owens couldn't be that guy. He's been a world champion before. It was a successful run at the time, and he's due for a singles championship. And I think Kevin Owens too is a guy that people naturally want to get behind, don't you find?
There's no doubt. Kevin Owens, even when he's a heel, he's also difficult to hate. Sammy and Kevin have this unique ability to like be really good heels, but at the same time you're like, do I really hate them because they're so good at what they're doing? It's difficult. They're cut from the same cloth. They are just so alike, and when they're together in the ring against one another or as a team, I mean, they magnify one another. They're so much fun to watch. And do I think Kevin Owens, has that in him to be that top guy? I mean, yeah, definitely. He's already shown it. It's just been in kind of here and there, and he's gone for 6 months. He's injured. Vince takes him off for no reason. He shows up for a random KO show. He's gone again. There's been no consistency. And I think that, as you said, if you put the rocket ship to him, there's no doubt about it. The guy he's so over on the mic. It was even difficult during the Stone Cold the Stone Cold versus Kevin Owens program to really hate Kevin, because he was doing so many hilarious things coming out in the Stone Cold outfit and just driving down Texas and how awful it is to be here. I mean, he was super fun to listen to, and he's really hard to hate. So I think his best days ahead are as a babyface. He's still a really good heel, but I think he's just a little bit better as a babyface because he's so relatable. He doesn't look like the rest of the guys in the locker room that are shredded. He feels like more like the common man. He's got a little bit of that Daniel Bryan vibe. I still believe that Kevin Owens will have a long 6-month plus run with a top championship. Of course, long runs have now been redefined based on how long Roman Reigns has had the belt. But to me, if you have a 6+ month run, that's considered long term in the modern era.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. It's all relative, right? And his run in 2016 was fairly long, if you think about it. And for all intents and purposes, he was the first ever Universal Champion, right? And, I feel like people forgot. Hopefully my episode on Retro last week helped, triggered some memory. But, I feel like people have forgotten that run he had with the Universal Championship. It's weird, but it's so long ago now, and it was so early in his career on the main roster that it almost feels like people don't even really know that happened.
That is, yeah. I mean, when you brought that as a topic, I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, we forget, and I remember how it happened with Triple H literally handing it to him, turning on Seth Rollins. And that led to Triple H versus Rollins and all that. That was fun. But, 6 years ago. And with Kevin Owens, I think it was 5-6 weeks ago, coming out on Raw and saying, hey, I haven't held a championship in WWE in 5 years. It's that was eye-opening to me. That was just how the hell is that possible? Rollins isn't too far behind either. I don't think Rollins has held a championship in, I don't know, a couple of years, it feels like. at least a singles championship. So it's just, to me, Kevin Owens is right there, ready for the taking. People like him. He's reliable. He's durable. He can do things in the ring that he shouldn't be able to do. He's polished. He doesn't need any work on any area of his professional career. And I think that right now he's positioned, if Roman Reigns was going to drop the belt, he's believable to do it. I know that they had their 4 matches or so during the pandemic era and the whole weird handcuff botch that happened.
Oh, that was terrible.
I mean, things like that happen. I get it, but so that was what, 18, 19, 20 months ago, and so it's been long enough where they could cycle him back into the rotation and be even more believable this time to beat Roman Reigns if Seth Rollins isn't the one to do it at Survivor Series, because Lord knows, I mean, now through November 5th at bare minimum, Roman Reigns is champion still, so they'll surpass 800 days, and then they'll get to Survivor Series guaranteed. I mean, you might as well just go to Survivor Series, so 820 days, that minimum, that he's going to hit that championship reign. So that's why, again, 1,000 days, guys. Sorry to say it.
Well, I heard you kind of in that debate with the casual wrestling fan on the mailbag, where like he was kind of like criticizing us for saying that the run was manufactured. And you're right, maybe the verbiage was wrong that we were using, but you can't deny that it is kind of being artificially, I think you used the word inflated.
Yes.
And it is true. Like, you can't just like book a match for, 50 days from now, like they did with the Saudi Arabia match. And I'm sorry, Mr. Casual Wrestling fan, if you're listening, but you can't tell me that it feels legitimate where they've just guaranteed him to be the champion until then. When back in the day, not to sound like a boomer or whatever, but as early as 5, 6, 7 years ago, you had to defend it every 30 days. And I remember him saying that he's defended it 22 times over the last 25 months or so. But you have, and I think you brought this up too, you have to realize that the lion's share of that is when he was defending it, like when he was a full-time wrestler on SmackDown and B-level pay-per-views, and he was there for Extreme Rules and TLC and Backlash and all this stuff. But over the last 12 months or so, that's completely not been the case. Maybe not 12 months, but certainly over the last 6 months. Over the last 6 months, he's defended it, 3 times? Mm-hmm. And that is why it starts to feel less and less legitimate. The first 18 months of his run, no issue for me. I thought it was all legit. I thought it was badass. No problem. As soon as he won the WWE Championship from Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania and went on this lightened schedule, I think that's when it started to go downhill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe this. And maybe if Mr. Casual Wrestling fan, who listened very intently and passionately to our show last week, I would say that's fair. And I think he would agree, and all of us would agree, that at least through WrestleMania, that we didn't really have too much of a problem, other than the fact that we knew at WrestleMania Brock wasn't going to win. We knew any match that Brock had with Roman, Brock wasn't going to win. So that was a problem at WrestleMania itself, knowing that Roman is going to unify the championships and he would be holding the 2 belts as the fireworks went off, and that's exactly what happened. But since then, the biggest problem that you and I have had, and fans in general have had, is the fact that he's not there. And again, I get it. He's earned this schedule. But the problem is that you are negatively affecting every other star that needs a championship opportunity. And when you book, like you said, you book matches 50 days out, 60 days out, you're talking about 2 pay-per-views ahead of where you're at. That tells you automatically that, okay, he's holding the belt until then, 1,000% guaranteed. And it takes the fun out of his run, because this is the artificial part. If you were going to narrow down and specify what we mean by artificially inflating, it means if today is September 26th, which it is, and you're telling me November 5th is the next time that he is going to defend the championship, which is against Logan Paul, for the next 6 weeks that there's no chance of him losing that championship. And they're doing this 2 pay-per-views ahead. It's not like they're doing it the 1 pay-per-view ahead that's traditional. So it leapfrogs the current pay-per-view. There's no chance of anything happening there, which is kind of a downer. It takes any of the unpredictability away, the fun of it away. Nothing. You know that's not happening. And you know also at Saudi Arabia that there's no chance of Logan Paul winning, so you have to keep moving in the schedule. And there, before you know it, weeks turn into months, and months turn into next year, that all of us are looking at it going, okay, well, I guess it's effing WrestleMania. That's the next possible opportunity. And that's the problem that we mean is Roman is so limited in the people he can work with for who is believable to beat him. And the fact that they're doing 60-day advance notice on when his championship matches are. They did that with SummerSlam this past year that ruined like June and July. And so that's the problem. That's what we mean by artificially inflating his run.
Between what they did with SummerSlam, booking his match with Brock before we even got to Money in the Bank, and with what they did now with leapfrogging Extreme Rules to go straight to Saudi Arabia against Logan Paul, they've essentially, just by osmosis, added 100 days to his run. Have you realized that?
No.
But if let's just say both of them were more or less, give or take, 50 days in advance, right?
Yep.
Like, that's 100 days. Like, that's 10% of his run if the ultimate goal is 1,000 days, which would stand to reason. And, like, I'm just saying, like, it would be different if, like, he was defending it at every pay-per-view. Like, honestly, I could give a damn if we see him wrestle on SmackDown. You know? Mm-hmm. Honestly, if that was something about it where it's just like, okay, you don't get to see him on SmackDown because he's a Tribal Chief champion, okay, fine. I don't mind. I don't care. I think that's actually kind of a cool concept, not to see the world champion compete on free TV. I think even like when they get a champion over on Raw, it would be something they should explore. It would get so much heel heat. And if it's the babyface when they do perform on Raw, then it's this big heroic, fighting champion, which we know they love to do. But for pay-per-views, could you imagine back when you could only buy pay-per-views for $50 a shot, buying a pay-per-view and the world champion wasn't there? Like, imagine like in 2004, you go and buy, let's say, Bad Blood, and like Triple H is in there with the World Heavyweight Championship. Like, that's unheard of. It's unheard of, but they get away with it now because the vast majority of wrestling fans have the WWE network, and it's a subscription, right? You're paying the $10 to $15 a month, depending where you are, and you're just like, well, I have it, so I might as well tune in anyway. And I find it puts a bad, like, I don't want to be sitting here talking about the negatives of Roman Reigns' run, because as we said to open the show, we like Roman Reigns. We want him to continue to be a Universal Champion. But it's when you do stuff like this and you hijack a Raw's world title and you artificially inflate his reign with just 50 days here and 30 days there and 60 days here, you're just like, well, is it 1,000 days? Because all these guys, let's say 10 years ago, or even as early as 2 years ago, were competing in each and every beat of the whole pay-per-view. And for me, I find it will really make us look back on this in a bit of a negative light eventually.
Yeah, I'm very interested when this whole thing is over and we look back. What are we saying about it? You know, like how are we going to feel? Are we going to feel, okay, yeah, it was artificially inflated, but man, the ending was great? I doubt it. I really doubt it. And you and I have said this. I don't think there's anything they can do at the end of this to say, wow, that was totally worth it. I understand why they did what they did here. That was great. There's no scenario I can come up with. The Rock coming back and winning the belt, don't want that. Seth Rollins, if he was to win it, that would be great. But I would say, what took so damn long? And you'd also wonder, that was lost time. That's lost time you can't get back for guys on Raw. That's the thing. At this point, I don't even care who wins it. Like, well, I do care, but I wouldn't say that the ending, the climax, the finale of this run, whatever it is, even as great as people may think it is not worth all of this wasted time that you cannot get back with guys' careers, especially on Raw, that have lost opportunities for main events at a pay-per-view simply for getting to the 1,000 days or beyond, or his 3-year run, whatever the hell they want to get to. you cannot get that time back, and it shouldn't just be all about Roman Reigns, a guy that's there like 3 times a month. It's not worth it, and I don't know. I understand he's a ratings draw. I don't disagree with that. If you look by minute, Roman Reigns absolutely is truly what he says he is. He's a needle mover, and that's awesome. But it's such a simple solution. Keep the streak going. Take the belt off of him. Have Triple H come out and say, per the draft rules, I have to take one of these off of you. We have to reset. I know WrestleMania was the unification of these 2 belts, but we're doing a draft again, and Roman, I got to take one of the belts off of you. That protects Roman and continues his streak. It's that effing easy, and I just don't see how they don't see this. They just can't see the forest through the trees. They're so tunnel vision on getting to whatever landmark number, the 1,000, whatever, that they can't see the damage they're doing that they can't get back.
And didn't they not just do that with Solo Sikoa to relinquish his North American Championship on NXT?
Yep, I saw that.
So like they've already opened that door. I think at this point maybe the best course of action would have Theory cash in. I don't know, but it's like we've talked about numerous times that at this point I don't even care how they get the WWE Championship off of him, just because I know that if they took the WWE Championship off of him, I would not care anymore about Roman Reigns' run, and I would have nothing bad to say about it, because I remember right up until they booked the match of him and Brock at WrestleMania, we all knew that he was going to win because we knew that Brock wasn't going to be the dual champion. That is the absolute second that I started thinking so negatively about this. And I don't want to feel this way, because he truly is a very special athlete. He truly is a first ballot Hall of Famer. This truly is a historic run. But I think you said this as well on your mailbag, is like, how historic does it have to be? That's what I don't understand.
We're at the law of diminishing returns. And I don't know how people don't see that, even those that are supporting this run still. Meaning that the more that we see Roman as champion, the longer this goes, the less return you're getting. Like, we've hit that point of inflection where, for a while we were all on board. All of us, you, me, everybody, this is great. I hope he's champion for a long time. But then it started to get a little tiresome, and therefore you start to go over the hill of like, okay, all right, I get it. Okay, let's go. And it just, the longer you slide down that hill, there's no going back up. Once you're on that downslide, that's it. You can't reverse what people want at that point, because time continues on, and people are just overall sick of seeing it. They want other people to have opportunities. And Roman has done as much as you can possibly do. There's really not much more you can do outside of headline WrestleMania with The Rock, but you and I both agree the championship shouldn't be involved, so that's a moot point. I just don't understand what their whole end game is and why they think the more that this goes, the better it'll be. It's not. They are actually detracting from a lot of guys' careers, and I don't mean that as kind of hyperbole. I mean that in real life. Like, this isn't storyline driven. This is actual guys' lives you're messing with, livelihoods of losing out on that opportunity. And the one thing I'll say about the Austin Theory cash-in, my theory, pun intended, is that I think what's going to happen on Raw, we saw a little bit of a hint of it, and I could be completely wrong, is that Money in the Bank briefcase will be put on the line in a triple threat match at Extreme Rules, and Kevin Owens wins it. That's my guess. And the reason is because Theory cashing in, nobody wants. And it would go from heel to heel, and that just doesn't ever make sense. From 1-2 year run as a heel to Austin Theory, I think he's going to be a great world champion, but it doesn't make sense in this transfer. But Johnny Gargano this past week on Monday Night Raw took the briefcase from Theory, and Kevin Owens and Theory and Gargano are kind of in this triangle weird program, and the only match I can think of at Extreme Rules for them is a triple threat where the Money in the Bank briefcase, he's somehow coerced into putting it on the line, and Kevin Owens wins it. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. It's just, there's just so many ways that they can do it. And when you talk about collateral damage here, like when we talk about collateral damage, it's the fact that Seth Rollins hasn't held a singles championship in 3 years. It's that Kevin Owens hasn't held a singles championship in 3 years. It's the fact that you're kind of not like done damage to Drew McIntyre, but really made him feel like not a full-fledged main eventer, when I actually think he absolutely is. It's just that I get it, what the goal is with Roman Reigns, but at the same time, you have so many other guys who maybe aren't on quite his level. But you know what? To be honest, I think Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre are right on Roman Reigns' level. I don't know about you, but would you put them right there?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Even though they haven't held gold in 3 years, 6 years between them, which is just insane. It's just almost impossible to believe. And yes, we could chalk some of that up possibly to the pandemic era that lasted 18 months or so. So yeah, I mean, that who knows if that pandemic never happened, if that would be different. It probably will be. But the fact remains, 3 years is absolutely criminal, and I would put them on the level of Roman. Both of them, Kevin and Seth and Drew, I would put all at the same level as Roman Reigns in terms of being able to, I think, credibly beat him, and I think fans would totally accept all three of them beating Roman Reigns. It would be something that is, I think, celebrated. I would think it's something that if Seth won, he'd instantly turn to a babyface, which I would argue he's kind of already a babyface given how over his music is. It's just, and he's gotten so obnoxious that he's become endearing. And so, to me, all three of them are believable. All three of them, I would choose any one of them to win the Universal or the Undisputed Championship from Roman. But do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. I mean, Seth is probably next up at Survivor Series, but that's not even official, so.
Well, because I just imagine during the Attitude Era or early Ruthless Aggression Era, if Triple H went 3 years without holding a world championship, or The Rock went 2 years without holding a world championship, just because you were doing everything in your power to push Austin to the moon. Is it not the same concept?
Well, I mean, yeah, it is, except, I mean, that's a different era. But yeah, if you went back in time and you had Triple H or anybody else not held a singles championship in that long, I mean, that would be something I think the fans would really, really notice and probably start to revolt. I mean, people would start to, even heels that haven't had championships for a while, fans, I think, would start to get behind them and turn them organically babyface because they would feel that they're being underappreciated, underused, underbooked, all that kind of thing. This is not something that's normal, though. I don't want this to be normalized with Roman Reigns' run here. I want this to be an exception to the rule. I generally don't want championship runs this long. I'm a fan of long runs. But the thing is, you got to know when to pull the plug. You got to know when enough is enough. That to me is what they haven't realized yet, or they don't care, or they feel like they're smarter than us right now. And that's the thing that they feel that they need to go further to get more out of it. When in fact, the further you go, the less you're getting out of it. In fact, you're actually going backwards in my mind. But hey, what do I know? I mean, I'm just a lonely fan here, sitting here venting about the whole thing. And again, if anybody's listening to this, casual wrestling fan, anybody, we are a fan of Roman Reigns as a character. We enjoy his mic work. He's improved insanely in the ring since he started. Overall, he's been a legendary champion that he will be a Hall of Famer if he retired tomorrow. No doubt about it. We have no problem with him being Universal Champion. It's just to the point of affecting the rest of the roster on an actual real life level. And it's just you are just taking the whole championship, top championships, and just keeping them close to the vest, and you know that it's not going to be defended until they tell you 60 days in advance. So, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's not much else to say on the matter. I agree 100%. Because they have something really going well right now, and I just don't want to get to the point that everyone's just so damn fed up of it.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are probably on the leading edge of that, but I think fans, especially, I mean, you heard it in Wales. Wales lost their minds that Drew McIntyre didn't win, and I was really surprised they didn't at least give him one championship there, and Drew can, move on. And I mean, who knows? The draft or the season premiere starts, I think, in 2 weeks. Their quote unquote season premiere that seems to kind of float in different days. I mean, I've had them do it at the beginning of September. I've seen them do it at the beginning of October. This week or this season, it's going to be in 2 weeks is the season premiere of SmackDown. You would imagine that that's when a draft would happen if it's a new season, but that's not what's happening. They would have promoted the hell out of the draft. So I don't know. I don't even know if a draft is happening, but at this point there are no separate brands anyway, which you and I have talked about. So any final thoughts?
No, I just, if there is a draft, I would be curious to see how they go about it, even though it will be kind of difficult with only one world champion.
Yeah, the draft itself would be very interesting, and that would be a perfect time to take one of the belts off of Roman and to keep his undefeated streak alive, by the way. I don't think he's even lost a non-title match. So, I mean, there's that too. You could protect everything by just having Triple H come out, be the baby face and say, Roman, I have to strip you of one of the belts. and we move on with our lives, and everybody's happy. Everyone gets what they want. I mean, so I just don't see how they're missing this. But all right, well, guys, catch Retro every single Friday. This week you did talk about Kevin Owens' Universal Championship run. That was a lot of fun, and well, I don't know what you're doing this Friday, but guys, tune in. It's dropping every single Friday. And what's your Twitter?
It's at ADeMarco25.
Very good. All right, buddy. Well, we will check in next week, and you have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, man. You too.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.